Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live interview with Doug Dane. Hello, Doug.
Hi, how are you?
We are live in Facebook and in my Facebook group. And so I'm super excited for this interview with Doug. I know we're starting a little bit early, but we wanted to give you a few minutes to come on with us and join the live broadcast. So while you're doing that, we're just going to start with chatting. And if you have to go back and watch the replay, it'll be available in the group or in the regular Facebook feed. So Doug Dane and I go back about 2017, 6 years now. We go back a long ways. And this is an interesting story because, and if you're here, say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're from and where you're watching from. And if you happen to know either one of us, mention your name if you're not signed in with StreamYard. So we go back a long ways. And the interesting story around that is that I did not like Doug at first. And so we did not have a loving relationship in the beginning of our time together. And I don't think he really knew that so much. And 2 years later, a friend and I were doing a talent show, and she and I were in conversation, and I kept saying these negative things about Doug. And so when we were at the event, she pulls me up to the front, says, "Doug, this is Shelly Nash, and she doesn't like you, and discuss." And so I don't even remember what we talked about, but that kind of broke the ice. And ever since then, it's been kind of this running joke that I didn't really like you at first, or I didn't like you, and now I do, and all of that. But however, we're talking about your new book, Mistaken Identity. I have it, my hardcover, which I really love. I'm glad you did that. But in just thinking about interviewing, I realized why I didn't like you, and I realized that I was judging you. I was right. You were wrong. I had a lot of experience in personal development. And I remember the first time when I started not liking you, you were on stage and you were trying to direct people, like organize cats, in the room. And I was like, he's making this so difficult. It doesn't have to be so difficult. And it was so frustrating for me. So that was the first moment in which I remember I was completely judging you for I could do it better, and I was, and all this stuff. So what was your experience of that?
I remember that moment, or because we have 400 people in a room, and I'm trying to organize the cats, as you said, and this my own self image. At first, I was always really concerned about what people were thinking about me. I was very nervous, and then I finally got to a point where I didn't really care too much what people thought, and I used to say, "Listen, it's my event. I can run this any way that I want." And you weren't the only one, because the left brainers, the process people. I mean, they had it all figured out. They could see the whole thing, how I should have done it.
Yeah.
And they wanted to vocalize it. And I was probably too stubborn at the time too. So
Yeah.
I learned.
So anyway, I really love that, that relationship of our, that I had from my standpoint, is completely shifted. And I have so much respect for you. And in fact, so in January of this year, I reached out to you. We hadn't talked for a really long time. And I had been, over the last 2 years, sharing parts of my story through my talking about, style and how to be your best self. And so I was telling these different aspects of my story that go way back. And, I just recognized that I kept telling the stories, and different people I was telling them to, they would have this response that was shock, or they would, and I'm like, wow, is my story that dramatic? Because I had kind of put it off on a shelf, and I thought, more and more, I was like, should I be more concerned about my story and how it affected me, and then having more awareness of how it had affected me? So in reaching out to you, I was just like feeling totally confused and frustrated. And I knew you had been through a lot in your life. And I knew that if anybody could help me, you could. And so I started to have more and more awareness of what was going on. And, and through, some of the chapters in your book really helped me I wanted to get to this place where my story wasn't affecting my life now, but it was an example that I could use with people.
Right.
But I had the awareness that for my entire life, I had allowed this story to run my life unconsciously, unbeknownst to me. So that's how we got talking again in January.
Yeah. And letting the story run your thinking, your emotions, and your attitude towards yourself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you told me you had the book, Mistaken Identity, that you were just writing, and gave me a copy before it came out, and I started working through it. So tell us about why you started running, when you started writing the book, how the book came to be, and your mission around that.
Yeah, well, I think I've been writing the book in my mind for a long time. I wrote down the words in my journal about 8 years ago, Mistaken Identity, and it wasn't then to be about a book, but I was playing with these words, going, I think, because everybody that I was meeting, and certainly in my own personal life and my experience, I had a mistaken view about myself because of how I was raised and how I was treated, and then, how I thought what I thought of myself, which caused me to act a certain way and, get certain results in my life, which just only confirmed, obviously there was something wrong with me,
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to, literally thousands of people, hundreds of people a week, and there was a theme to pretty much everybody, and even the most successful people. I met a lot of people who become really successful in business and entrepreneurs, whatever. And there was an underlying theme, like they just had the wrong opinion of themselves, right? And some, like me, I didn't like myself. I had low self-esteem. I didn't feel like I felt insecure. I was anxious, nervous around other people. Like I had all these things going inside. You didn't know it on the outside. I was good at, faking it, but I just kept talking to people, and I could see as I was mentoring them, or even just having a conversation with somebody, I could see how that mistaken identity of theirs was holding them back or causing them problems in their life, in their career, at home, and also how they were raising children. And I was a kid that really suffered a lot of trauma and abuse. And of course, I struggled at an early age. And then I became an adult that struggled. And then I became a father. I go, I don't want to perpetuate this generational cycle. And so for the last 8 years, since those words kind of came to me, and so then I thought, my story, I'd written my life story in the newspaper, and it was on television in 2001. So that's what is that, 22 years ago. In fact, it was April 14th. It was April 4th or April 5th, I think. And it was called Dark Past, Bright Future. And so it was the dark story, but then how, I was now free and life was much better. And so of course, everybody was coming to me going, like, how did you go from that dark past to creating this bright future? Because my future was getting brighter and brighter. And I couldn't tell you how I did it. I knew what I did, but I couldn't transfer the knowledge to you. So for the last 8 years, I was just basically assembling in my mind, working on myself to let go of different things and change my view on myself, to let go of still the negative emotions, and then helping other people while I was helping myself, to a point where then finally, okay, I got it figured out. I tested with a bunch of people one-on-one. I was changing fast. They were changing fast. And I wanted to put it into a handbook or a guide that could get people to change really freaking fast and let go of the past that's holding them back. So when I actually wrote it, it didn't take me very long at all. It was actually I wrote it very quickly. I gave it to the publisher, and they were shocked at how good it was with the first manuscript. Well, I've been writing this for a long time in my head,
Yeah, and I think so many things come to mind with that. The book is written as a study. It's like, it's not just something you read it and apply it and put it into action and think about your life. And when I was reading it, and actually I'm only halfway through, I stopped for some reason. I kept thinking, did I stop because I was triggered by something, or because of a programming of the past? But I think I just felt so much better so quickly, just even after the first chapter, which is stop judging. Right? That's the first chapter. I felt so much better, quickly. And I've been studying personal development for 40 years. I'm not a new kid on the block in this respect.
I say the book is instructive, directive, and prescriptive. You know how, well, you've been in the medical field. You know how you go to the doctor and they give you a prescription. They say, take the whole thing for 7 days. Did you actually feel better after a couple of days? You don't generally finish the prescription, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, you got rid of what you needed to get rid of the poison you need to get rid of with whatever chapters were the prescription.
Yeah.
And I got fed up with the shelf help industry, and not blaming them, but I had a lot of books. I'd buy them. I'd read them. Nothing would change. There'd still be something wrong with me. I'd put it on my shelf, and then I'd go buy another book. And somebody challenged me. They said, "You're going to write a book, Doug. Why don't you write a book that actually works?" And I wanted to give people something that actually work. And so you got to do a little bit of work, not a lot. It's not a long book. The chapters are very short. The action steps are short.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just remembering another call I had with you when I was desperate. Like, can I talk to you? We had a call. I remember it was in my car, because that's where I was at the moment talking to you. And I was like blurting out all the things that were not working and all the problems, and then what I love about you is it's just so simple, you just simplify everything. And then you said, which is one of the chapters, you said, Shelley, and I actually said this, I just feel like there's something wrong with me. Why am I not getting this? And then you just like, there's nothing wrong with you. And I think that's how we get, when we get so frustrated to end of our rope, like there's got to be something wrong with me.
Right.
And the realization that there's not, that, you're born perfect, and that this mistaken identity you've taken on. And then if you can just let go of that and get back to your perfection, then, and let yourself shine in that, then everything's going to be better.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That makes me happy.
Yeah. So many cool chapters in this book. Another one that got me was stop shooting on yourself. And I think a lot of us do this too. In every day of our lives, I should have done it this way differently today. Right. And I think that's another thing I get from you is that it's okay. Yeah. Like just whatever, just let it go. And I think you get this from Bob Proctor too, both our mentor, and just let it go. Don't get all riled up about things, and just accept that you did the best that you could today, and then start again tomorrow.
Yeah. No, listen, that's easy to say though. If you approach this from a scientific perspective and kind of the science of mind viewpoint, so your mind, you have this gift of your mind, and you can direct it and control it. You may not choose to do that, but you can. And it does direct your brain and nervous system, meaning kind of how you think and what you end up doing and how you feel, And if you're shooting on yourself, especially for anything that's already happened, you're just not using your mind properly, because your mind does not operate. It only operates in the present moment. If you're worried about the future or you're looking at the past, you're putting, like any machine, if you don't use it properly, it puts stress on the machine. Well, how does that stress show up in your brain, your nervous system? Well, you know the answer to that. And so just fundamentally, we have to start forming the habit to go, I am not going to replay things that I've done and criticize myself or worry about the outcome of what I did, because it's done. I can't undo it. All I can do is look at that situation and go, what did I learn and what can I do differently as I go forward? Now that's a good question. So that's feedback and course correction, but criticism of something that's already done you can't undo. That's just
Yeah.
not proper use of your mind. And so I started to learn that I wasn't operating this machine properly. It's no wonder I'm stressed. No wonder I'm sick. And so when I understood I've got this machine and I am the operator, I probably should operate it according to the rules of how it works. And so that was easy. So when you can get this, when you can understand objectively and intellectually that I have this machine, like here's a machine, my smartphone, it operates a certain way. And so that what that did is that separated me from my emotions and my victim mentality and my all the other poor me crap. And I just became very objective. And as an adult, I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah.
As an adult, I thought, wait a minute. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with me, and stop shooting on myself.
Yeah. So you talked about worry about the past. So then what's your advice for worry about the future or worry about what's to come? Same thing?
Listen, you got to understand as it relates to the topics we've just talked about. Okay. So judging, you weren't judgmental when you were born. You learned to judge because you were judged by others and you started judging yourself. Okay. You worry, you look back on the past with guilt and resentment because that's what people did to you or they did to others. You learned to do that. When you were little, you didn't worry about the future. You learned to worry about the future. Now, if you were lucky and you were raised in a family, like I don't really worry too much about the future. So my daughter's seeing that I really operate in the 11th hour. I really love Gandhi's model, 11th hour decision making. And we just learn to worry about the future. So we have to get that straight. Okay. So if we're doing things that are causing us problems, we learned it. Doesn't mean that's the way we are. And so worrying about the future, I remember Bob said, because I used to worry about the future a lot. And I said, Bob, I'm just feeling so anxious. He goes, Doug, anxiety is simply fear of the future. Don't do that. Yeah, but Bob, I'm really, really frustrated. Doug, frustration simply means you're not meeting your expectations, which are in the past. Don't look backwards. Don't worry about the future. Work in the now.
Wow, that's
the way he talked, right?
Yeah.
And I knew it, and so I had to keep practicing these new rules of how I was going to operate. And it didn't take very long. Once I chose, okay, I'm gonna use the machine properly, and then it got more effective. I became more effective. So.
Yeah, I remember growing up that there was a lot of worry in my family. My mom, my dad were worrying, and so I did recognize that was what I thought thinking was.
Right.
I thought thinking was worrying about stuff.
You better think ahead, Shelley.
Yeah.
You better plan for your future, Shelley.
Yeah.
Well, you don't control the future. You can control where you'd like to be, but you do not control how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So why worry about it? And statistically, 80% of the things you worry about never ever happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
Why waste your energy?
Yeah. Anything else about, before I ask you my final questions, anything else that you want people to know about the book that you really want?
Yeah, I think what I want people to know is, so every one of you that are, watching or listening, everybody I know has a mistaken identity to some degree or another, unless you've let go of that already. But most people they're just mistaken. If you don't feel good about yourself, if you don't feel worthy of the success you seek, if you're still searching for validation, approval, if you have a fear of criticism, you're worried what people are thinking about you, if you're dealing with anxiety and depression, or you're living in the past, or worrying about any of these things, you have a mistaken identity, and you're mistaken about who you are. And so what I try to do in the book is it's 3 phases. One is learn, unlearn, and then relearn. So the learn part is, what is a mistaken identity? How did you get it? And what is yours? Then phase 2 is I just start to undo it and get you to unlearn that. And I start changing your mind in each chapter. I use my story as leverage to get your attention. And then I hit you really hard right square in the eyes. I'm very direct with people, and that's why Shelley didn't like me first. And then I introduce an idea to take some action to move you in the new direction. And then the third part is to relearn. And so, like Shelley and many other people, at some point, I say to people, don't work on yourself. Let the book work on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is really a step-by-step guide, if you will.
Yeah.
I just say to people, stop trying to fix yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Just be yourself and stop asking what's wrong with me. Start asking what's wrong with what I believe. What's wrong with who or what I'm following? What's wrong with how I was treated when I was little? Ask those questions, and that will get you to understand why you think there's something wrong with you. And then you'll come to the conclusion that there's not, and then you'll be free.
Yeah. The phrase related to that always helped me so much is like to ask myself, is it really true? This belief I have about myself, is it really true?
Yeah.
Like, for example, one of the limiting factors that I had for so long is that I have to be thin to be successful.
Right.
I have to be thin to be successful. And that ran my life. That ran my weight loss, weight journey up and down so many times. Mm-hmm. Because I kept thinking I had to be thin to be successful. And then I could say, well, is that really true? Well, no, it's not. There's other people that aren't thin and they're highly successful.
That's right.
Why do I believe that?
Yeah.
So it's a great question to ask yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah, I love this more and more. And I love how it just really connects with what I'm doing with primarily women around their image, how they look, how they dress. And you say, be yourself. And so actually my workshop next week is called Be You in Style, because what I've realized is that style is about who you are. Mm-hmm. And you have to discover who you really are. What is the truth of who you really are, what you want and where you're going. Mm-hmm. And then your personal style, your clothing you want that to fit with that.
Right.
And fit with that, not only that, but where you're going in your life and what's the next level of where you're going.
Yeah.
So have you thought about that with as a man or as women you work with, their self-image and their style and how they dress and how that comes from a mistaken identity and then how they can shift that?
Yeah, for sure. A couple things. So, when we were little, we were brought up as a judge very early on, and we were brought into this, developed this huge compulsion towards conformity. Like we were expected to conform, but we're also told, be yourself, Doug, be unique, but conform. Like what a push and pull, right? What a dumb game. Mm-hmm. And then of course, because of all the judgment and how we were treated, we developed this fear of criticism, what other people would think. And actually this really developed. It didn't really start until post-war, early 50s, when commercialism really took off. We didn't have the same mental health challenges that we do today that we did back then, mm-hmm. which begs to differ, or begs a real question. And then the other thing, in the book, I talk about it. I was at the airport coming home from a trip. I was in the customs line and coming back to Canada. And I noticed everybody in line, and it was very busy that night. And I'm looking around, and there was nobody that looked the same. Different sizes, different shapes, different colors of skin. Nobody was wearing the same thing. And what I noticed was their shoes. Not one person had the same pair of shoes on. And I thought to myself, like, we're all so different, right? And that's the way it's supposed to be. And we're fine, with clothing, we all wear different things. So why can't we just be ourselves and just be comfortable in the image that God created for us? And just, I think the key is just discover who you are and then just be yourself and express it through style. I've taught a client earlier, I got an email from her, and she dresses in this 1940s vintage look, very classic. She loves it, right? Mm-hmm. She just feels and she's a beautiful person. She feels really comfortable in her own skin and in that style. My daughter used to be a wolf. I don't know if you ever heard of Therians, but a Therian is the spirit of an animal. And so
Mhm.
my spirit animal is a wolf. And so when she was young, we bought her a tail that she could clip on her jeans, and she was a wolf. And of course, she became the alpha wolf, and she had a wolf pack with all her friends
Well,
because she loved this movie. I forget what it was called, about wolves. And for a couple of years, she had a wolf pack, and
mm.
people teased her, and her mom, wasn't too certain. But I go, she's a wolf. Be a wolf, Eden. I know. I tell her, remember your wolf days? She goes, oh my god, Dad. But I just wanted her to be herself, and just
Yeah.
express herself.
So, yeah. So it's about expressing yourself. When you express, like, even this year, I've like uncovered more, like, how can I be more authentic? How can I let myself shine through, not hide so much? So when you're yourself, then what happens in your life? What's the result of being yourself?
Well, your results get better
Yeah.
because you're you can be yourself. Like if you try to be somebody you're not, you strive and strain and struggle. How does that show up? It shows up emotionally. It shows up physically. It shows up your anger, your stress. Like you have all these negative emotions and negative physical states, and that's not effective. And your mind, it actually is only really effective if you're in a relaxed state. So we have to learn to develop this calmness of mind so we can be more creative to get to our goals and solve our problems. So, like it's when we were born, Shelley, we were born with love and integrity, and there's nobody like us. That's natural.
Mm-hmm.
But the way we were taught to live is unnatural, and that's why we don't feel good in our own skin because we're just not operating
Yeah.
properly
Yeah.
because we were taught to act the wrong way, think the wrong way, believe the wrong things. But yeah, if you could just be yourself, it's just so much easier.
Yeah. As I mentioned that yourself, there's an article that you and I both know that's called that,
Mhm.
and one of the stories in that is like these women going to a well, and they're when they drill down and find water, they drill down and they tap into the water, and then a geyser shoots up. And
Right.
I always liken that to, like, when you get rid of all the mistaken identity, all the false beliefs, the limiting beliefs, and you drill down to your truest self, the
Yep.
geyser, your passion, is always going to be there on tap for you. You can
Yes.
tap into that.
I love it.
And I call that the fountain of youth. People always ask me, how do you stay so young? How do you, it's because you tap into that
Right.
passion of who you are and what you're meant to do and serve, who you're meant to serve here. And so I just always love that example
Love that idea. Yeah,
of
that's
that.
cool. It's a good example.
Yeah. So we're getting to the end. If anyone has a question, feel free to put that in the chat for either of us. What do you have coming up next, Doug? Sorry. And how can people get your book? And
Yeah. Well, you can just Google Doug Dane. You'll find me, all over. You can follow me through social that way if you want to follow me. Go to dougdane.com. You can get the book through there. You get the book anywhere. It's shipping to stores now. Came out last Tuesday. It's online, of course, wherever you buy books online, so you can get it now. Shelley has hers; it's now shipping. You can go through. If you go through my website, we capture your email address and we give you we send you a workbook that goes with the book right away. So you can grab that through me if you like, but you don't have to. Just go direct to wherever you want to buy a book, and that's it. Just go get it, and then stay in touch and let me know what happened. Maybe, I don't know, maybe by chapter 2 you'll be free. Who knows? I just want to free yourself. I think everybody is stuck in a prison of their own making. They got arrested because of this mistaken identity. The real villain is their upbringing and their programming when they were young. And the key to your freedom really lies inside. And so I wrote this book as a key to help you break out of jail. And so I'm on one big massive jailbreak. I'm trying to break as many people as I can out. So if you break free, let me know. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, it's so needed, and I can see that there's just going to be so many people getting together to support each other and working through some of the book, even though it's definitely a self process.
Mm-hmm.
But I've really enjoyed hearing other people's experience of the book as well, when I connected with you again. So you have something live next week in Toronto, if anyone lives in Toronto.
Yeah, a friend of ours, we both
Love
know,
that.
Hina Khan, is hosting an event where I guess kind of Hina's so good at interviewing people. Oh my gosh. So we're going to do an intimate interview in this beautiful setting in downtown Toronto to talk about the book and the story, and hopefully, just like today, try to help people with one little thing, maybe one thing that Shelley says or I say can help you. So we're doing that next Thursday. And then people that buy the book, I invite you in the book to actually go through the book with me, like Shelley did. And so we have a little way you can, go through each chapter one day at a time with me. You read the chapter, you get a video from me with a bit of instruction, explain the chapter a bit more. And I do live calls to take questions and help people. So you can definitely get involved in that if you want. But I don't know where I'm going, Shelley. I know the problem I want to solve in the world. I don't know where the book's going to take me. I'm just going to
I'm sure it's going to be great. I've texted you a few ideas that I've had along the way, and I'm sure other people are doing that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it too.
So if you have any questions, reach out to myself or to Doug. I'm happy to help get you connected. Just a little plug for myself and my masterclass next week, Be You in Style. It's happening Tuesday and Wednesday next week at 10 a.m. It's in a private Zoom meeting group, and so you'll have to register for that. Connect with me for that. If you want to talk about basically your mistaken identity and how it's affected, how you dress, how maybe your business is going or not going, and how you can get aligned and congruent with your truest self and where you're going, with your style. So thank you so much, Doug. I feel like I could talk to you all day about this, but we'll let the people go. And I look forward to hearing what people get from our conversation today and what people get from the book. I know I've shared it with my clients and they've already ordered the book as well. So, and the first chapter on Stop Judging, I had shared that with my clients, and I saw one of my clients had posted a post on Facebook about how that had helped her so much. So you never know the ripple effects of what you're doing here.
Thank you. Well, one quick thing I got to say, even though Shelley didn't like me in the beginning, I did get a chance to know her and work with her. And help her a little bit with her business, and she's really good at what she does, and she's got a big heart. She has learned a lot in her life, and like all great mentors and guides, the most experienced ones are the best ones. And so I think anybody that talks to you is in great hands. So I'm proud of what you're doing too.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. I'll talk to you soon, and we'll say goodbye for now.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.